Do you ever have those moments when your heart yearns to craft something beautiful, but inspiration remains just out of reach? You find yourself paging through your cherished journals, your fingertips brushing over the pages, but that creative spark remains elusive. I've had one of those days recently, and I came up with a simple yet effective solution. Welcome to another Junk Journal Snacks episode. It's Barbara from Vienna, Austria. I decided to embrace the power of words and let them guide my journey, not confined to a particular journal, but experimenting freely on a loose piece of coffee-dyed paper. This unconventional approach took away the fear of messing up my journal, replacing it with an exciting sense of creative liberation. To kickstart this process, I brainstormed words beginning with B, the first letter of my name, Barbara. Words like button, bee, book page, bird, bag. The aim here was not to incorporate all these words into a single creation, but to awaken my dormant creativity and allow it to flourish. Equipped with this unique B word list, I delved into my treasure trove of craft supplies. As I rummaged through my collection with these words in mind, ideas started to materialize. I didn't pressure myself to find materials for all the words. Instead, I allowed myself to be guided by intuition, my hands naturally gravitating towards items that resonated with me. Coffee-dyed paper, bits of old book pages, buttons, a small paper bag, bee stamps, all found their way into my selection. This journey was not about perfection, but about exploration. I gently tore the paper down to size, perfect for seamlessly integrating it into a future journal page. The raw edges were distressed with walnut stain, adding depth and a vintage look to the piece. Looking through my collection of paper bags, I decided on this one from a Danish store. I trimmed it to align with my page, adding character with some stitches along the edges. Then, to create a lighter backdrop that would show color more vividly, I collaged scraps of book pages onto the paper bag. The written words added an underlying narrative to my artwork. To mute the stark font and create a harmonious blend, I applied a layer of gesso using a silicone brush. The gesso acted as a curtain, subtly veiling the text and allowing the upcoming colors to truly shine. Embracing the magic of mixed media, I reached for the Lost Shadow Distress Oxide Spray. Working with one of my favorite stencils from Studio Light, I sprayed through the design onto the paper, adding a layer of depth. Not wanting to waste the residual color, I flipped the stencil over and pressed it onto the coffee-dyed paper, revealing a mirror image of the pattern. The effect was stunning, the oxide spray giving it a beautiful, dreamy quality. I used my heat tool to dry this, simultaneously dabbing away some of the darker areas with a kitchen towel. The result was a subtle blend of light and shadow. To further add depth, I decided on a beehive stamp from Your Creative Studio. I pressed it onto the paper bag and the coffee-dyed paper using Ice Spruce Distress ink, creating a lovely pattern that unified both pieces, connecting them in a subtle dance of design and color. Each element, each layer is adding to our ephemera's narrative. Craving a burst of color, I added mustard seed distress oxide through a Tim Holtz beehive stencil using a soft makeup brush. This vibrant hue offered a beautiful contrast to the muted backdrop, bringing our image to life. To ensure the delicate oxide didn't smear, I took the paper bag onto my balcony and lightly sprayed it with a matte fixative, creating a protective barrier over my work. For additional depth, I used a hexagonal stamp, adding embossing ink with my dabber, and I selected my beloved speckled egg embossing glaze. This translucent layer allowed the underlying design to peek through, creating an interesting play of texture and shades. I extended this glaze to the edges of my coffee-dyed paper, mirroring the wet look of the paper bag, further unifying the two elements. For a striking centerpiece, I selected a large bee stamp from the little stamp store, embossing it in sparkly black. The transformation of the powder as it melts is always a moment of wonder, isn't it? And to lend an ethereal quality to the bee's wings, I lightly traced them with my distress embossing pen and coated them with clear embossing powder. After meticulously cutting out the bee, I added touches of an inviting yellow using Caran d'Ache water-soluble wax pastels and a water brush. This made our little protagonist appear more friendly and whimsical in my eyes. I decided the perfect sentiment for this piece of ephemera was the stamp Just Be from one of the Your Creative Studio boxes, which I stamped onto a vintage music sheet. After trimming and inking the edges, I adhered it onto the paper bag. And with our whimsical bee now ready to be the star of our artwork, I adhered her to the center of the paper bag. Which I then only glued at the top and the bottom, creating a belly band, presenting yet another inviting nook to tuck a treasured momentum into. Finally, I felt the need for some splatters, so I sprinkled my Van Gogh Deep Gold 803 across my artwork. Its warm hue provides the golden twinkle that I feel no piece of my ephemera is truly complete without. Craving a touch more contrast, I decided to also incorporate white splatters, and with that final touch, our piece becomes a blend of textures, colors, and imaginative details. An art journal page created from a moment of uninspiration, now brimming with life. So next time you find yourself at a creative crossroad, try this method. Begin with a word, a letter, or even a color, and let it guide your creative process. And remember, every creation of yours is a journey, not a destination. Love you guys. Mwah, mwah.